Welcome back to One Winning Pod, where the Ravens are starting their stretch of 2 divisional games in 11 days. Very big series of games coming up, but one that we can't overlook. The Browns, a good team that has won 3 out of 4 games since we last played them. And I think that's kind of the most important place to start. They had their bye week, and they seem to have reset a little bit and started putting together some wins, some against some really good teams. And I think we have to kind of discuss. I mean, we played against Robinson, DTR. I think we'll be playing against Watson in this game, unless like his shoulder flares up again. So this is a very different game than what we played a couple weeks ago, and teams that we know a little bit more about now.
Yeah, certainly. It's going to be a different matchup than last time, and it's interesting to see. This is a matchup against the Browns that used to be something you circled as an automatic win. The Ravens will be going for their first sweep of Cleveland since 2020, and really, I mean, since 2017, that's the only time the Ravens have swept Cleveland in recent memory. All the rest of the years have been a split series, and even in 2020, that everyone remembers that back and forth game that finally was put to end with the Justin Tucker game-winning field goal. But even with that split series, I mean, as far as losses to Cleveland in Baltimore, it's only been one. That was 2019. The Browns just completely surprised the Ravens there. But hopefully that won't be the case this Sunday. Obviously, the past 2 home games, Ravens vastly outperformed our expectations of them. Not that we didn't think they could win those games. We weren't expecting them to win as big as they did. Now we're seeing them come into a game that I feel like a lot of fans are expecting will be a win for the Ravens. But yeah, I think you bring up a good point. Can't overlook this team because the 4 games they've played post-bye week, they've been competitive in every single one of them. So yeah, I think we're going to be facing a team that's going to be a little different than last time.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing with Cleveland, and honestly Pittsburgh for that matter, definitely relying on the strength of their defense right now. I think, like you said last time, I think the Browns defense, they're playing at a really high level. I think the first couple of weeks, everyone was kind of like, okay, Browns are one of the top defenses in the league. It's been a little bit longer now. I think some of that has died down a little bit, but still, I think their defense is in the top half of the league. We've talked about him a lot. Starts with Myles Garrett. He's the main guy. Leads the team in sacks, tackles for loss. I think the secondary is still playing at a high level. Even the guys outside of Garrett, I think they ended up having 7 sacks against the Cardinals last week. Only one of them was actually from Garrett. A couple turnovers as well. Very opportunistic. I think the biggest thing I think for the Ravens is honestly the offense can't take a step back. We know that turnovers have plagued them a little bit. They've just been fortunate that the other teams haven't taken advantage, but that's how the Browns are going to stay in, is if they force turnovers and score off of those.
Let's go and revisit the last 4 games that they've played since their bye week. They started off beating the 49ers. It was the 49ers' first loss of the year. It was kind of a shock, 19-17. Only forced 1 turnover, though, so that's important to note. Then that kind of changed quickly. The next week, they beat the Colts, which the Ravens didn't do. Transit property, are they better? Wait and see. They had 4 turnovers in that game and quite, kind of just dominated 39. Or actually, no, it wasn't dominating. That was a tight game. I forgot about that, 39-38. But man, with that many turnovers, it's kind of shocking that they put up 38 points. Kind of worth talking about, right? But then the transitive property bites them in the butt because they lost to the Seahawks. Seahawks were able to come back. We talked about that. That was a 20-24 matchup. And then they went and played the Cardinals and shut them out. Kuhn had no answer to their defense and had another 3 turnovers in that game, the sacks that Chris mentioned. So those were the games that led up to, this rematch here later in the season. I think the biggest thing for me is that, granted, they had a bye week to prepare, but being the 49ers is impressive. Backup quarterback, and they were able to go in there and figure it out. Granted, it was at home, but still, it's a very impressive win, in my opinion, and just kind of an indication of what they can do when they're they're playing at their best.
Definitely, yeah. And what does give me pause about this game is the fact that this game, like we're saying, you look at these games and you're just like, how is Cleveland as competitive as they were against these teams? It feels like these, with the exception of Arizona, these feel like games that Browns should have lost, and yet they won uh, two of those three before the Cardinals game. Um, at the same time, you have to acknowledge the elephant in the room. The Ravens want to sweep Cincinnati, of course. Cincinnati is back on track after a very rocky first 3 weeks of the season. Burrow looks very healthy. That game is going to be a very quick turnaround in a primetime atmosphere after this game. Ideally, I'm sure the Ravens want it to be just like the Seattle game. You go up by 3 scores into halftime, and all your starters are on the bench when the fourth quarter starts, and you're rested up for Thursday night football. But obviously, they can't they can't rest on their laurels here. This is a team that's going to fight. This is a divisional game, and look, every single team in the AFC North has a winning record. That includes Cleveland. They have to feel like they're in it as much as anyone else. They've got Deshaun Watson back. Sure, we'll talk about Deshaun Watson, whether that, what that really means for that team. But look, I think this team's going to come in and they're going to give a really strong effort. So hopefully the Ravens take the same effort that they took after Detroit, where, the word from everyone who had access to that locker room was that the team was acting pissed, acting like, they didn't play that well, and were just focused on the prize ahead. Because I think this team's going to need to respect the fact that this is a Browns team that is going to come in here ready for a fight.
Yeah, and I just kind of want to mention too, all the AFC North teams being a winning record. The Ravens can't be looking over and looking at Cincinnati, because right now the Browns and the Bengals and the Steelers all have the same record, 5-3. So you lose this one game, within a game and a half behind. God forbid you lose both. That's starting to look pretty bad at that point. The lead that you have over the teams right now in the division can close very rapidly. So yeah, it's certainly something. I feel like you kind of mentioned, Peter. Just I feel like it's worth reiterating too. Just like I feel like there are definitely teams now in the league that just kind of hang around. I feel like the common ones, the Steelers, and not just as like Ravens fans. I think like around the league, I think people kind of look at the Steelers team and they're like, how are they 5-3? It just makes no sense. Their offense is just so anemic. Obviously Steelers fans know that they don't really want their offensive coordinator around. They want to change at that position. They've got players who might have talent, but they're not really sure. But they just really don't know how they're hanging in these games. And ultimately, it comes down to, the Ravens know that they can score a lot of points on people. But, I think a lot of these teams, like the Browns, like the Steelers, are able to hang around because they're not necessarily there. They're not there to make the big play necessarily, right? They're just there to honestly survive and treat it like a heavyweight match. Like they'll take the blows, they'll play it safe, and hope that a couple plays go their way, because that with the game of football, with like a lot of sports, it only takes a few plays of random chance to be able to turn things around. And it's not a bad you know, hand to play, I guess, given, your roster and your situation, what have you. Yeah. And, I feel like that's going to be the thing with the Browns is, are they going to be able to stay in this game and find a few plays that they need to make? Like we said, we saw it before with the game. Before with the Browns, like there were a couple plays that they made to be able to stay in it. It really was just kind of came down to the quarterback play was really the difference. Now coming in with your starter, things could be a little bit different. We know Watson has made some plays. I feel like we kind of got to go into it a little bit now, though. Kind of talk about what to expect from him. I feel like last time we probably talked about him a little much, not knowing that DTR was going to come in. But let's kind of talk it up a little bit now. What can we expect from Watson in this game?
Yeah, certainly interesting. This is going to be the first time the Ravens have seen him at home, M&T Bank has not seen Deshaun Watson since he was a Houston Texan. He was suspended. We saw Brissett last time. We snuck out with a 23-20 win in that game. And then when we went to play the Browns, it was a letdown game for the Ravens. We lost that game. It was disappointing. I felt like Deshaun didn't play particularly well, but did enough to win. We kind of shot ourselves in the foot in that game. So looking forward, we got to pay attention to the shoulder. I think that's the big thing. Hard to play a quarterback with a bad shoulder, bad throwing shoulder. And that's what he's been nursing since he had that kind of surprise inactive. And then there was like a lot of drama around it, some outward shaming from the coaches, and then other people saying, "Oh no, that's actually worse than we thought." Blah blah blah. So it was kind of a weird situation with him. And yeah, now he's back, and I think we have to monitor that because they also kind of changed his weapons. They traded away Donovan Peoples-Jones, not the biggest playmaker in the world, but he did play a reasonable part in their offense. So looking forward now, they're going to lean more on Elijah Moore and Amari Cooper. And I guess we'll see, if they're able to make big plays like we were talking about last episode. I think for them to succeed, they're going to have to maybe play outside the rules. They're going to have to try to push the ball and see if they're able to beat our defense that way. Because if they play, to our defense's script, so to speak, it's really difficult to move the ball, really difficult to score. Just ask all the teams we've been playing lately.
Yeah, definitely. It's a huge question mark, in my opinion, what the Ravens can expect going against Deshaun Watson, because we just haven't seen that much of him in Cleveland healthy. The combination of him being healthy and having enough time with his body reacclimated to the game after that layoff, right? And like Alex, you just said right there, we don't even know if he is going to be healthy, right? The status of what's going on with his injury, with his shoulder, is a little confusing. He had a slow start against Arizona. He finished well. The second half was really good, but certainly some struggles in the first half as well. And let's also not forget, I mean, he did have a decent game against Arizona. At the same time, though, that Arizona pass defense has been pretty bad. We've seen a lot of players have really big games against Arizona this year. So my biggest thing to say is I just don't know. I just don't know. I don't think anyone has really been overwhelmed with what Watson has done this year. That said, he seemed like he might have been on the cusp before the injury against Tennessee. Came back against the Colts, looked atrocious, was taken out due to injury. And then, did fine against Arizona, but does that tell us anything? I don't know. So I think that the Ravens just have to have a sound game plan and just come in with the expectation that Watson has the ability to be the all-pro quarterback that he was with Houston, and just don't overlook it because, say what we will about Watson, he has in the past shown an ability to be one of the best quarterbacks in this league in certain situations. So he's got to watch out for it and have a game plan that doesn't overlook the guy, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think for me, I think what I'm looking forward to the most, I think, is the Ravens corners against Amari Cooper. I think he's got to be the X factor. I mean, if the Browns are going to be hanging in this game, Amari Cooper's got to be fed the ball, and he's going to be making big plays. Obviously things were encouraging with how the Ravens attacked the Seattle group of receivers. We talked about it in the episode about holding DK to basically only one play the whole game, and that play by itself was pretty explosive. So I think Cooper is one of those guys as well. He could just, he has a tendency to just really get open. He's really good route runner and just able to make guys miss and get enough space to be able to make a play. And he's also a good yak guy as well. So, I don't know if he's going to be on him. Marlowe, Stevens, probably going to be, probably going to be mostly those guys, particularly on the outside. But honestly, Cooper's one of those guys who can play anywhere as well. So, I think if they can do a good job on him, I think the rest of it will kind of take care of itself. Obviously there's more, and our boy James Prochet now over there as well. But I feel like I have a little bit more confidence in the Ravens to play some of that underneath coverage. honestly, for me, like it seems like it could be a good opportunity for Hamilton because of his wingspan and being able to play in the slot. I would expect to have him cover a lot of the guys underneath, and maybe he'll be able to get that second pick that he wants.
Well, looking more at the offense, another call out is that Jedrick Wills was put on IR today. James Hudson will be starting at left tackle. Always an important position. We were talking about last episode that Stanley's very important. The left tackle position very important. And so, with the way our pass rush has been performing, this could be an opportunity to really disrupt their offensive game plan if we're able to come after him on the blind side.
Yeah, definitely. Their offensive line is a little bit beat up, so we were able to take advantage of that in the first game. And once again, like we talked about Detroit, like we talked about Seattle, take the run game away. That's something that is this offense is, this defense is incredibly capable of. And look, I know Jerome Ford, he's made some plays this year. He has, but I think overall, he's not a guy who should be too hard to take out of the game. Certainly, if you've been able to take out, the guys like Kenneth Walker out from the game, that should be fine. Kareem Hunt, his best days are behind him. He has done a decent job coming back here and filling in, but again, at this stage in his career, not really a guy who's going to run over you and you're not going to have an answer for. So again, just like last time, it feels like the game plan's simple for this one, right? Just clamp down on the run and make sure you have a plan for Cooper, and you should be able to keep this offense in check. The last thing you really have to worry about is Watson's scrambling ability, which, doesn't seem to quite be what it was when he was younger in his career.
The way Queen's tackling right now, I wouldn't worry about it.
Yeah, exactly.
I think another thing that's interesting is that Cedric Tilpin's playing more than he did when we played last. He's kind of elevated. He got 74% of snaps last game. And even James Prochet got some snaps and is operating as a kick returner. So it seems like he might actually have a real role on that team. It's not just like for intelligence purposes. Him and Kenyon Drake both picked up.
And good for him, man. I mean, obviously he had his struggles in Baltimore, but he's a guy that we were all rooting for. Alec, I don't know if you still held on to everything from the James Prochet fan club or if you shipped that all over to Cleveland this week. But, I mean, you always want to see guys have success, even if it's on rival teams. I think we'll need to see some more from James, but that's at least good to see that he's found a new home and is at least getting a shot, right? That's all you can ask for in life is a shot. And hopefully for Prochet, he's able to make something from this, whether it works out with Cleveland or some other team in the NFL. So that said, I don't think we're going to have to worry about him, burning us for 100 in this game. Just have
Prochet
a feeling about that.
Revenge game. Doesn't really have the speed for that.
Look, man, again, like I said, I don't want the Ravens to overlook anything, but I feel like the odds are pretty good on that not happening on Sunday.
Yeah. Well, moving over to the defensive side as well, we talked about earlier. Myles Garrett, obviously the big star player on this defense, continuing to just be a monster. Ravens, however they're going to handle him, they're going to put Stanley, they're going to put McCary or Moses if he comes back healthy. They're going to have a plan for him. Obviously, I think the more help, the better. Using Ricard and a bit more of pass blocking might help. Getting Lamar out in space obviously could help, but I think at the end of the day, we're going to be seeing a lot of the Ravens continue to lean on the run game, kind of block him out of the play. I think that's probably a good thing that they would try to do, and also just getting the ball out quickly as well. Just don't let their pass rush take over. Don't let them dictate the play as our defense does with other offenses. So. Certainly a lot of guys, on that defense, I think can do a lot of good things. But it feels like, it's one of those where, their offense continues to execute at a high level. I think that a lot of that can be mitigated in certain ways.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing with Garrett is just figuring out how do you limit what he's going to do? Because you know that he's going to be a handful. You know he's going to disrupt. So, how do you just minimize the impact of what he's going to do on a game? past 5 matchups against the Ravens, he's had at least 1 sack. He's been able to have an impact there. And, I think that just what you're going to look at is just look at the same thing you did last week with Mafe. Like you said, there were plays where he was back there, he was disrupting, but aside from the fumble, the Ravens are basically pretty much able to neutralize that effect. And Garrett, he's an incredible athlete too, and Mafe is as well. I'm not sure which of the two you would say is more athletic. I don't even know if it matters because they're both just freak athletes. But yeah, I think Chris, it's like you said last episode. Lamar is just so fast back there that even if Stanley gets beat sometimes, or whoever else is going up has to suffer the short straw of going up against Garrett. At this point in his career, Lamar's got the athleticism with the way he's seeing the field right now that you're not that worried about it, and he can get out of that situation. Which was that 2 years, 2021 was it, that the game where Lamar backpedaled like 18 yards and then fired the ball to Andrews in the end zone, and Garrett just had to shake his hand, I think.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, don't get me wrong. Garrett's going to be something this offensive line is going to have to look out for. But, man, Lamar is the quarterback to go against him. That's been a battle throughout both their careers, and it should be exciting to watch once again.
We'll have to see what's happened with Morgan Moses, if he's available in this game or if we're going to be leaning on McCary. And looking at their defense, they're relatively healthy, except Greg Newsome is dealing with a groin injury. He was out. And, looking at the snap counts, I will say it might have been garbage time that Prochet was in. He had the same amount of spots or same amount of snaps as PJ Walker. So might have been during garbage time. And similarly, the defense seemed to have some replacements come in eventually, but it looks like they leaned on Cameron Mitchell for some of the snaps to kind of replace Newsome. And we'll have to see if he's able to be back from this groin injury. I feel like probably not. Groin injuries are difficult, but we'll see.
Yeah, I think that's going to be an interesting one. I'd like to see the Ravens test him. I think that would be something that you want to look at, particularly when you're trying to get Bateman some more opportunities, when you're trying to figure out what Odell's best role is in this offense. Yeah, I take advantage of that. And I'm sure the Ravens are looking at that, but they had a couple opportunities against Seattle with Bateman to go some deep balls down the sideline. Didn't work. And, I forget if we specifically mentioned it in the recap against Seattle, but I know Chris was mentioning it live. The Ravens just kind of gave up attacking that part of the field, right? They saw that they weren't having success there early on, but everything in the middle of the field was working just fine. So just continuing to do that. Again, in a game where we're expecting the Ravens will win big, again, the game has to play out. In a division game, anything can happen. I think you do want to try and take some shots there and try and get that part of the offense going. Like we said, the Ravens have made big plays this year, but you want to see them convert on those at a higher rate, particularly from the deep passing game. So I would look at that as an opportunity here for the Ravens to take some shots. I'm sure they will. We'll just have to see how effective that is, and if that's something they go back to with any deal of frequency during the game.
Love to see that. Love to see some more Keaton Mitchell. Honestly, I'm just like salivating at the thought right now. I'm just having Keaton breaking off some big runs and seeing some Browns players just hands on the hips, tired, chasing them down from behind. So, I mean, yeah, shoot. I mean, just more of the good stuff. I mean, it just it sounds simple and obviously very, very hard to execute in practice, but yeah, I mean they've got the pieces, man. We've seen this game plan work out before. You can do a lot of things to kind of throw them off balance, as long as they execute well, and it'll definitely be a challenge. Like I said, I mean, aside from Garrett too, I mean, I think the Browns defensive line is probably a top 5 unit in the league, period. So, it's not an easy task. The thing that I kind of hang my hat on, I'm sure you guys would agree to, is that the run blocking this year, particularly over the last couple of games, I think has been pretty great. So they definitely can do it. The question is whether they're going to. So
Hopefully, the Ravens are able to limit the turnovers in this game. Like we mentioned, they've been able to generate turnovers, this defense, and that's the way that the Ravens lose. The Ravens lose when they shoot themselves in the foot. They're really good at winning when they just can execute their game plan because they're just so talented. So that's what I'm looking at here because this defense is definitely opportunistic. They're pretty good, and they'll be able to take advantage of those opportunities if granted. So I think the big thing that we got to focus on is no fumbles. Hopefully in this game, good decision making by Lamar, and then we'll be probably be golden. Honestly, this is the time of the show where we do some bold predictions.
Absolutely, I'll go with mine. I think I kind of mentioned it before, but I'm really liking the Kyle Hamilton matchup here. I mean, obviously with Watson's shoulder, I feel like it's tough. He can air it out sometimes, but I feel like a lot of the film I'm watching him recently, I think there's a lot more underneath stuff. And to be honest, I feel like that's kind of actually one of his weak spots. Accuracy isn't the best, I think, in some of the short stuff. And Hamilton plays a lot in a lot of those underneath coverages. So I'm going to say Hamilton gets at least 2 pass deflections. He's actually got 4 on the season so far, so that would add 50% on top of his season total. So I think that'll be pretty big. I'm going to say the Ravens win this. It's obviously a home game. We're going to be out there. We're going to be cheering on the defense, making sure that we get those false starts from the Browns, get them off their game. So I'm going to say the Ravens win this one. You know what? This might be a little cocky, but I'm going to say we win by at least 10. I'm feeling like this may not be a close game. I'll say Ravens 30-17.
I like that one. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting, right? You look at this and you do have to acknowledge that the Browns, like we said, they performed really well the past 4 weeks, but so did Detroit coming into the bank. So did Seattle. I think that the Ravens have more talent than the Browns do. Watson still doesn't look like he's able to put together 4 full quarters of football. And I think with the way the Ravens run defense is going, that's what a quarterback needs to do to keep pace with what the Ravens defense is doing and what's clicking with the offense. So I think that the Browns they'll fight. They'll fight certainly. And I really hope that this is an easy game for the Ravens. I'm going to say pretty similar to what Chris is saying. I had this score already written down before Chris put it out, but I'm going to go 27-16 Ravens. So pretty close. Bold prediction. The easy one here is to take Money Mark, right? Mark Andrews always seems to have a big game against Cleveland. That's a matchup that really favors the Ravens. But I'm going to stick at the tight end position. But again, hopefully this is a game where the starters won't have to do as much. So we can, again, just like last week, give some opportunities to some guys who are more role players right now and who we'd love to see have bigger roles in this offense. Without an injury opening that up, obviously. But so we started giving him some more targets this past week against Seattle. Let's give my bold prediction a touchdown for Isaiah Likely.
Ooh.
Like that.
All right, guys. So we've got here Ravens are favored by 6, over under 38 points. And if you go back and look at the Browns and their, game logs for all the games they've played this year, there's this big outlier game against the Ravens, obviously backup quarterback, where they only put up 166 yards. In every other game, it's been over 300. I'm going to say we keep them under 200 yards with their starting quarterback in. I'm not predicting no injury to the Watson. I'm just saying even with him around, I think under 200 yards. And I keep hating, I feel like, on this defense, almost disrespecting them by assuming that that these other offenses are going to be able to score points. And today I'm going to say no. I think we're going to see more of the same. They aren't going to go in the end zone. Maybe they get 2 field goals. Maybe they get 1 field goal. Maybe they get no field goals. Maybe it's a shutout. Who knows? But I think the Ravens are going to have another statement win. I think the NFL is going to continue talking about them, starting to get serious, guys. So let's say 35-3 Ravens. I think we're just going to keep stacking, guys. I think it's important that we keep doing this because we want to not look past them. And let's just say that the Ravens are disciplined this year and they're able to just pile on. Well, with that, let us know your bold prediction and score prediction. Leave them in the comments or message us on Twitter. We'd love to see it. At @OneWinningPod on all social media. And we'll be back after what will hopefully be a big Ravens win and then a unbelievably tight turnaround that I hate for production purposes to go and play the Bengals. Well, let's not look ahead. Go Ravens, beat the Browns.